Thank you. My name is Alia again, and it's an honor to be here. Thank you, Rosalind. Thank you, everyone. So I want to start by, again, presencing who I used to be, and that was a depressed corporate marketing executive, feeling trapped in my cubicle, feeling unseen, unexpressed, and feeling like there had to be something else. And now, well, I'm in this fabulous bodysuit, dancing on stage. I went from those horrible, god-awful green kilts that I wore in school to leopard. So, yes, but I was very disconnected from my creative power, and I've come into a sense of connection with my creative power, and an indelible sense of that. And I'm not only a DJ and music producer, I am also an entrepreneur and a coach, and I'm supporting other women and tapping into their creativity. And every day I feel like is a creative act in what I get to do. And some people ask me how I got there. And so you saw some things in the video, but I want to just touch on a few milestones because I think that there might be some of you out there that might relate to this journey, especially if you are not feeling connected to your creativity or to who you are right now. So I was a high schooler in Plaid, and I was in a very preparatory environment. I was essentially being prepped for higher education, for accomplishment and success in traditional kind of corporate tracks. And I was given a lot of opportunities, and I was very much given a particular idea of what you could do in the world. And while my parents encouraged my creative activities, what I came to find later was that in many ways it felt like it was just so that I would look really well-rounded on my college applications. And after that point, it was not something that was ever considered to actually be a path, to actually be something that I could do in the world. Because most people didn't understand that they didn't see how maybe that might be possible. And wanting the best for me, of course, they were encouraging me towards more kind of academic pursuits and traditional pursuits. And I remember I had so many hints when I look back of so many clues of how I was really most inspired by those creative activities. I remember music was that source passion that I remember back to probably 8 years old, and I was already making mixes and just carefully putting music together so that it would flow just right, and as well as listening to stuff that no one else was listening to in my peer group. And I remember feeling the most lit up when I was dancing on stage. And so I went into college, and it was like the transition started. It was like I slowly got more and more disconnected. But at the same time was kind of like cracking a little bit and starting to question things and starting to wonder maybe I could do those things. I remember I was looking for internships for the summer, and I had a conversation with my dad, and there was this internship that I really wanted to apply to for Francis Ford Coppola's film company here in San Francisco. And he dissuaded me from applying because he didn't see how I could create a career from that. And I remember feeling like, okay, well, I guess I'll go into try a more creative career, like within the bounds. While other people were going into investment banking and consulting, I was like, okay, maybe I'll try advertising and marketing. And then, of course, found that, well, advertising and marketing is just strategy and business. And but I had the career that people coveted, that was, by many regards, successful. But I remember sitting in my office and just looking out the window and just feeling like I was dying inside. Parts of me just were like so longing for something else. And I got this opportunity out of the blue to come here to San Francisco. And it was one of those like life-changing offers where I would have left everything I knew, my family, my boyfriend, my job, and I knew that I had to just start over. And that was 13 years ago, and I just took the leap and I came here, not knowing anybody. And immediately I tapped into transformation and dance communities, and I started to, like, all of that work started to open me even more. And I started to see myself, I got glimpses. But even then, it took a few years because I still stayed on the same path because I was scared. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to change. And I didn't know what that next step could be. And I got a wake-up call. And that was, finally, it was like my body had been giving me signals all along. But my body really started to break down severely. And I lost use of my leg. I lost use of most of my arm at one point. And it was literally like I was dying. I really was. Like, parts of me were not usable anymore. And that was the turning point. That was the moment when I had to make a different decision. And I had to say, okay, I have to do something else. And I have to honor what's happening here. And so I didn't know what would happen, but I was like, okay, I'm gonna go follow that passion for film and see what happens. I'm gonna scratch that itch. And then immersed for 2 years, and that was the moment when, like, I really let myself completely go into my creativity, uninhibited, and found out I didn't want to be a professional screenwriter, but it opened the pathway. And then what happened was that then it was like all the steps along the way brought me back to that source, to that passion, to the music. And it was around that time that I got that opportunity that I talked about to play that first event. And it was bliss. It was utter bliss. Just allowing myself to just play music for people and having them love it, and I loved it. And it was like, I can do this? Okay. And I just kept getting asked. And then within a year, I was being paid. And that was about 3.5 years ago. And I've been being paid for that art. And I've been finding out that it is the journey, that it's the steps along the way that bring you to the next step, and then to the next step. And if you choose to, you can open the portal and then decide what you're going to do. And if you're going to take it, if you're going to take that opportunity. And I did. And then it was like, my musical career has been the lab. It's been the great experiment for me of finding out what it's actually like to actually live your bliss. Because I up until that point, I really didn't know what people were talking about with that. I really didn't understand. And then I started to see that everything starts cracking open when you let yourself make those choices and follow your joy. And so there's a few milestones that I want to share with you guys. And in return, what I'm going to do is I'm going to invite you to ask yourself a question about that. Because I find that questions are some of the most potent opportunities for us to actually go into inquiry about who we are and what we want and how we can step into that. And so here's a few things that I learned was that, it is a journey. and that actually there really is no particular destination. You don't really get there, you just keep unfolding it. And so I invite you to ask yourselves, how can you stay committed to that journey? How can you stay on the path? How can you be willing to follow the breadcrumbs and follow the curiosity and follow the feeling of inspiration in your lives? What is it that maybe you may have abandoned or let go of because you thought that you couldn't do it anymore, or that it doesn't fit into your life now, or that it just doesn't fit into your idea or others people's ideas of who or what you should do or be? So often we can bend and shape ourselves around those ideas that we pick up along the way, and then forget what's actually true for us and who we are. So what if you asked yourself, what could you do now? What could you reclaim? What love or passion could you reconnect with? How could you honor that? And how could you be gentle with yourself along the way? And ask yourself too, how could you be willing to be more uncomfortable? Something I've noticed is that the creative journey is anything but comfortable. It's one succession, a series of uncomfortable moments of having to come face to face with everything that lives inside of you. And that can be confronting. And so I invite you to expand your capacity to be with discomfort and to be with risk, because the creative process is inherently risky. And being a human being, being in this human experience is inherently risky. And I think sometimes we can lull ourselves into thinking that if we just stay comfortable, then maybe we'll be safer. But actually, what you might find is that it actually feels more risky the more comfortable you stay, and less risky the more you let yourself expand. And I know that there's probably some of you out there that don't necessarily identify as creative, don't think you're creative for whatever reason. Maybe because you think, well, I'm not artistic, so I'm not creative. And so I want to just invite you all to just debunk that myth right now. I'm here to tell you that creativity is not just about being artistic. Creativity is a way of being, it's a way of relating to the world, it's a way of responding to what happens, to everything that happens. You can always bring a creative response to that. And there's a simple way, the thread that's been weaving through for me, the simple way that I access that every time. I want to show you right now. Ready? It's the most potent tool available to all of us. I'm living an inherently just creative life. I'm living and breathing my creativity. I'm not only performing and working with my music, but supporting other creative women, and I'm creating my programs, and there's just creativity flowing everywhere. And yet, what I discovered just recently was that I was putting 5 months of my life into creating a program for women to support them to tap into their creativity. And then I realized that in doing that, I was not putting attention onto my music. And I have a big goal of producing my own music and my own sound, and of tapping into that. And it was like I got punched in the gut, realizing that I had sacrificed that or abandoned that in some way. And so I share that only to illustrate that you have the opportunity to just always change course and use what's happening in order to get information about where you want to go next and make a different choice next time. And refine your process as you go. Allow yourself to learn from everything, and then decide and define what it is that you truly want, and then go for that with utter gusto and with utter love and devotion. So thank you so much for listening. I honor you and your creativity.